How to build wealth from nothing. No degree, no connections. They told you that you need a college degree and insider connections to build real wealth. That's the biggest lie the establishment ever sold you. Look, I get it. You've been watching people with fancy diplomas and family money seem to effortlessly climb the ladder while you're stuck grinding at jobs that barely pay the bills. You've convinced yourself that without those advantages, you're locked out of the wealth game forever. But here's what's crazy. Some of the richest people in history were college dropouts who started with absolutely nothing. Richard Branson, founder of Virgin Group, worth $4 billion, is dyslexic and barely finished high school. Jan Koum, who sold WhatsApp for $19 billion, immigrated to America with nothing and worked as a janitor while teaching himself programming. Your lack of formal credentials isn't a disadvantage, it's your secret weapon. While degree holders follow conventional paths, you're forced to think creatively, hustle harder, and find unconventional solutions. You don't have the luxury of playing it safe, so you take the calculated risks that create real wealth. If you're ready to turn your disadvantages into your greatest advantages, comment "starting from zero" below, and let's build wealth the way it's actually done, through determination, strategy, and relentless execution. Step 1. Master the mindset shift. The biggest trap keeping Americans with no degree or connections broken forever is thinking like an employee instead of thinking like a wealth builder. You wake up, go to work, trade your hours for dollars, come home exhausted, and repeat this cycle, hoping someone else will eventually reward your loyalty with more money. But here's what's devastating. This employee mindset is exactly what keeps you dependent on other people's decisions about your financial future. Most people without formal advantages fall into this trap because it feels safe and predictable. You show up, do what you're told, collect a paycheck, and let someone else worry about the big picture. But wealthy people think completely differently. They don't trade time for money, they create systems that generate value while they sleep. They don't wait for permission to get rich, they give themselves permission. Let me tell you about Richard Branson, who's now worth over $4 billion, but started with what most people would consider devastating disadvantages. He was severely dyslexic in an era when learning disabilities were barely understood. Traditional education was torture for him. He couldn't read properly, struggled with numbers, and felt stupid compared to his classmates. Most people would see this as a life sentence to mediocrity, but that's just the obvious part. What I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who overcome disadvantages and those who use them as excuses. Branson's learning disability forced him to think differently, communicate simply, and focus on solutions rather than complex theories. He couldn't understand complicated business jargon, so he learned to explain things in plain English. He couldn't follow traditional business models, so he created his own unconventional approaches. This disadvantage became his superpower. While MBA graduates were analyzing spreadsheets, Branson was connecting with real customers and solving real problems. His inability to fit into corporate molds forced him to create Virgin, a company that revolutionized multiple industries precisely because it ignored conventional wisdom. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to miss the most important wealth-building realization of your life. Your lack of formal training isn't holding you back. It's freeing you up. While degree holders follow prescribed paths and conventional thinking, you're forced to be creative, resourceful, and innovative. The solution is shifting from employee thinking to entrepreneur thinking immediately. Stop asking, "How can I get a better job?" and start asking, "What problems can I solve?" Stop thinking, "I need someone to hire me," and start thinking, "I need to create value people will pay for." Here's your immediate action step. Write down 10 problems you encounter regularly in your daily life. Then pick the one you're most qualified to solve, based on your existing knowledge and experience. That problem is your first business opportunity. And what I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who stay trapped and those who break free. Your lack of formal credentials means you think outside the box by necessity, and thinking outside the box is exactly how real wealth gets created. Step 2. Start with service-based income. The biggest lie keeping people with no advantages broke is believing you need money to make money. Most Americans think wealth building requires massive startup capital, business loans, or family money to get started. They convince themselves they have to wait until they save up thousands of dollars, find investors, or somehow get access to funding before they can begin building wealth. But here's what's devastating. This waiting game keeps them stuck in poverty forever, while opportunities pass them by every single day. The brutal truth is that the best businesses start with nothing but hustle. And service-based businesses are the fastest way to generate income immediately using only what you already know. You don't need inventory, fancy equipment, or startup capital. You just need to identify what you're already good at and find people who will pay you to do it for them. Let me tell you about a window cleaner named Ray, who started with absolutely nothing. No degree, no connections, no money, just a squeegee and desperate hunger. While his friends with college degrees were competing for corporate jobs, Ray was knocking on doors offering to clean windows for $20 per house. Most people looked down on him, thinking he was just another guy doing manual labor with no real future. But that's just the surface. What's behind it is what will startle people who think service work can't create wealth. Ray didn't just clean windows. He studied his customers, perfected his techniques, and systematized every aspect of his service. He figured out the most efficient routes, the best cleaning solutions, and how to deliver consistently perfect results faster than anyone else. Within 2 years, Ray had so much demand that he hired his first employee. Then another. Then another. He documented his system, trained his workers, and expanded to commercial buildings. By year 5, he was running $1 million cleaning company with 50 employees, while his college-educated friends were still climbing corporate ladders one promotion at a time. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't miss the most important wealth-building opportunity available to anyone. Your existing skills, knowledge, and experience are valuable right now to someone who needs what you can provide. You don't need to learn new skills or wait for perfect conditions. You need to monetize what you already know. The solution is conducting a personal skills inventory and identifying your first service opportunity immediately. You're good at organizing? Offer organizing services. Do you understand social media? Help local businesses with their online presence. You're handy around the house? Start a handyman service. Here's your immediate action step. List 10 things you're genuinely good at doing. Pick the one that solves the biggest problem for the most people. Find 3 potential customers this week and offer your service. That's your business launch. And what I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who build wealth and those who make excuses. Your hustle, reliability, and hunger will beat their credentials every single time in the real marketplace, where results matter more than degrees. Step 3. Become obsessively valuable. The biggest excuse keeping people without degrees poor is believing they need formal education to master high-value skills that pay serious money. They convince themselves that without a college degree, technical certification, or expensive training programs, they're locked out of the high-income skills that create real wealth. They tell themselves, I can't learn programming without a computer science degree, or I can't understand marketing without an MBA. But here's what's devastating. This limiting belief keeps them trapped in low-value work, while self-taught specialists are building fortunes. The brutal truth is that in today's economy, formal education is often irrelevant compared to proven ability to deliver results. Employers and customers don't care where you learned your skills. They care whether you can solve their problems and add value to their businesses. While degree holders are debating theory in classrooms, self-taught specialists are gaining real-world experience and building portfolios that demonstrate actual competence. Let me tell you about a programming prodigy who grew up in poverty with no access to fancy computers or coding boot camps. He discovered programming through library books and spent countless hours on the library's ancient computers learning to code. While his peers were partying in college, he was teaching himself Python, JavaScript, and web development through free online resources, YouTube tutorials, and endless practice projects. The establishment told him he'd never compete with computer science graduates from prestigious universities. But that's just the surface. What's behind it is what will startle people who think credentials trump capability. This self-taught programmer understood something college students didn't. He learned by building real projects, solving actual problems, and getting immediate feedback from users rather than memorizing theoretical concepts for tests. Within 3 years, he had built several mobile apps that generated passive income, created websites for local businesses, and developed his reputation through demonstrable results. When companies needed problems solved, they hired him based on his portfolio, not his diploma. Eventually, he launched his own software company that was acquired for $15 million by a Fortune 500 company whose executives all had fancy degrees but couldn't build what he built. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to miss the most valuable opportunity of the internet age. You have access to the same learning resources as Harvard students, the same online courses as MIT graduates, and the same information as any expert in any field. The only difference is your willingness to commit to obsessive self-improvement. The solution is picking one high-income skill and dedicating yourself to mastering it through focused daily practice, not expensive formal education. Here's your immediate action step. Choose one valuable skill: programming, digital marketing, sales, graphic design, or copywriting. Commit to studying and practicing for 2 hours every single day for the next 6 months. Your results will be your credentials. And what I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who make excuses and those who make fortunes. Internet access is your university. Real results are your degree. And obsessive self-improvement beats expensive education every time. Step 4. Build systems, not just services. The biggest trap that keeps hardworking people with no advantages stuck in middle-class mediocrity forever is staying trapped in the time for money exchange. You start a successful service business, you're making decent money, customers love your work, and everything seems great. But here's what's devastating. You're still the bottleneck. If you get sick, the business stops. If you take a vacation, the income stops. If you want to scale up, you have to work more hours, but there are only 24 hours in a day. You've created a job for yourself, not a wealth-building machine. Most people never escape this trap because they confuse being busy with building wealth. They think success means working harder, taking on more clients, and personally handling every detail. They become the irreplaceable center of their business, which feels important but actually limits their growth potential. Without systems, you can't scale. Without scaling, you can't build real wealth. Let me tell you about Ray Kroc, who understood this principle better than almost anyone in business history. When he discovered the McDonald Brothers burger operation in 1954, he wasn't impressed by their food quality or their profits. He was fascinated by their system. The McDonald brothers had figured out how to produce consistent results using detailed procedures that anyone could follow. Every burger was made the same way, every order was processed identically, and the entire operation ran like a well-oiled machine. But that's just the obvious part. What I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who build jobs and those who build empires. Kroc realized that the real value wasn't in making burgers. It was in creating a system that could make burgers consistently, without requiring exceptional talent or constant supervision. He documented every process, standardized every procedure, and created training programs that could teach anyone to operate a McDonald's restaurant successfully. This systematic approach allowed McDonald's to scale from one location to thousands, then tens of thousands of locations worldwide. Each restaurant could operate successfully without Ray Kroc being physically present because the system ran the business, not individual personalities or unique talents. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to stay trapped in the time for money hamster wheel forever. Your goal isn't to become irreplaceable in your business. It's to make yourself unnecessary for day-to-day operations while remaining essential for strategic decisions. The solution is to systematically document and standardize everything you do in your service business. Create step-by-step procedures, develop training materials, and build processes that produce consistent results regardless of who's executing them. Here's your immediate action step. This week, document exactly how you deliver your service from start to finish. Write down every step, create templates for common tasks, and develop checklists that ensure quality regardless of who's doing the work. And what I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who work in their business and those who work on their business. Systems free you from daily operations so you can focus on growth, strategy, and building wealth instead of just earning money. Step 5. Reinvest everything. The biggest mistake that destroys wealth-building momentum for people who started from nothing is spending their first profits on lifestyle upgrades instead of reinvesting them back into growth. You finally start making good money from your service business or systems, and immediately your brain starts calculating what you can afford now. The nicer apartment, the better car, the expensive dinners, the designer clothes. You've been grinding for months or years, and you feel like you deserve to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But here's what's devastating. This is exactly the moment when most people sabotage their wealth-building potential forever. The brutal truth is that your first profits are the most valuable money you'll ever touch because they have the longest time to compound and grow. Every dollar you spend on lifestyle inflation in the early stages is a dollar that can't multiply into $10, then $100, then $1,000 over time. Most people treat their first business profits like lottery winnings, instead of treating them like seeds that need to be replanted for bigger harvests. Let me tell you about Warren Buffett, who understood this principle better than almost anyone in financial history. Even after he became worth millions, then hundreds of millions, he continued living in the same modest Omaha home he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He drove old cars, ate at inexpensive restaurants, and maintained a lifestyle that cost around $50,000 per year, while his net worth was growing by millions annually. But that's just the surface. What's behind it is what will startle people who think wealthy people live lavishly. Buffett wasn't denying himself pleasure or being cheap. He was being strategically brilliant. Every dollar he didn't spend on luxury was a dollar that could be invested and compounded at 20% plus annual returns through his business ventures and stock picks. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to make the most expensive mistake in wealth building. The lifestyle you can afford and the lifestyle you should choose are completely different things when you're building wealth. Your goal isn't to live like you're rich, it's to become actually rich by reinvesting everything possible back into growth. The difference between someone who builds $1 million business and someone who stays stuck at $100,000 isn't talent or luck, it's reinvestment discipline. The person who builds wealth takes their profits and immediately puts them back into better systems, more marketing, additional income streams, and growth opportunities. The solution is setting a strict reinvestment rule before you start making serious money and sticking to it religiously for the first 5 years of wealth building. Here's your immediate action step. Commit to reinvesting 70% of all profits back into your business for the first 5 years. Live off 30% and let the other 70% compound through growth investments, better systems, and new opportunities. And what I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who get rich and those who just look rich. Every dollar you spend on lifestyle today is a dollar that won't be working to buy you freedom tomorrow. Step 6. Create multiple income streams. The biggest vulnerability that destroys wealth for people who started from nothing is depending on a single income source, no matter how successful that source becomes. You've built a profitable service business, your systems are working, you're reinvesting profits, and everything seems perfect. But here's what's terrifying. You're still completely vulnerable to economic downturns, industry changes, or market disruptions that could wipe out your single income stream overnight. One major shift in your industry, one economic recession, one new technology, and your entire financial foundation could crumble. Most people who escape poverty make this critical mistake because success in one area creates overconfidence and tunnel vision. They think their successful business will last forever, that their industry is recession-proof, or that they're immune to the forces that destroy other businesses. They put all their eggs in one basket and assume that basket will never break. But wealthy people understand something that middle-class people miss. True financial security comes from diversification, not from perfecting a single income source. Let me tell you about a wise farmer who lived through the Great Depression and understood this principle better than most business owners today. While his neighbors planted their entire farms with single crops, corn, wheat, or soybeans, he divided his land into different sections. Part of his farm grew vegetables, part raised livestock, part produced dairy, and part grew grains. His neighbors mocked him, saying he should focus on becoming the best corn farmer or the most efficient wheat producer instead of spreading himself too thin. But that's just the obvious part. What I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who survive economic storms and those who get wiped out completely. When drought killed the corn crop, his neighbors lost everything, but his vegetables and livestock provided income. When grain prices crashed, his dairy and meat sales kept him profitable. When disease affected livestock in the region, his crops generated revenue. No single disaster could destroy him because he never depended on any single source. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to build a beautiful wealth-building machine that can be destroyed by circumstances beyond your control. Multiple income streams aren't just about making more money. They're about creating unshakable financial security that protects you from any single point of failure. The solution is systematically building 3 to 7 different income sources using your core skills and existing business foundation as the launching pad. Here's your immediate action step. Once your first income stream is consistently profitable, clone your success model into a related area. If you're successful at cleaning windows, add gutter cleaning. If you're great at graphic design, add website design. Use your existing skills and systems to create parallel income streams. And what I'm about to say is what makes the difference between those who build temporary success and those who build permanent wealth. Diversification creates true financial security that no single economic event can destroy. Now you have the complete blueprint for building wealth from absolutely nothing. No degree, no connections, no advantages required. Master the mindset shift from worker to wealth builder. Start with service-based income that requires zero investment. Become obsessively valuable through self-directed learning. Build systems that work without you. Reinvest everything instead of upgrading your lifestyle. And create multiple income streams for unshakable security. But here's the reality check that most motivational content won't tell you. This system takes 5 to 10 years of focused, disciplined execution. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme or some overnight transformation. It's a methodical process that requires you delay gratification, work when others are relaxing, and build when others are consuming. Your lack of formal advantages isn't holding you back. It's forcing you to be more creative, more resourceful, and more determined than people who had everything handed to them. While they follow conventional paths, you're creating unconventional solutions that often work better. Which step resonates most with where you are right now? Comment step number and tell me what action you're taking this week. Are you starting your first service business, learning a high-value skill, or building your first system? And if this showed you that wealth building is possible, regardless of your background, share it with someone who needs to see that their circumstances don't determine their future. Remember this: your background doesn't determine your future. Your decisions do. Every successful person you admire started exactly where you are right now, with the same doubts and the same hunger. The only difference is that they decided to begin.